Welcome to the Audio Description Network Alliance. Today we're very happy to have Caitlyn Elizabeth. She is an audio description narrator. She's also a voice talent and so much more. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
What do you love about audio description?
Really everything about it. I feel like at the surface level, you might think it's just you're describing the scene, but when you get into the specifics of what it actually is, it's almost like a hidden world that you don't think exists in a way. There's sort of a bravado, like a magic that comes with getting to narrate, and that doesn't exist without that kind of narration. So I don't know, I get very into it because it's not a full performance. I think I've heard you only want to do 25% performance, but you also have to know what the scene is, what you're saying, what's going on. There's just so much that goes into it, and I love it.
Very cool. And it's neat to hear about that 25% performance. I think that's, and we've said this before on our podcast, that it's a high wire act. It's not that it's 75% less work. It's more like trying to fit in and make sure it's not too much or too little in that 25%, kind of making sure that it stays in that. And I'm curious about that magic that you talk about. I love the sense of wonder and curiosity that word magic brings to audio description. Could you expand a little bit more on this other world of audio description is that maybe some people would assume is just, oh, it's just describing versus what you're talking about, which makes me want to lean in.
That's like saying voice actors just talk for a living. It's the exact same premise. When you listen to audio description, if you're just listening to it, it could almost put you to sleep if it was just someone talking. But the technicality that goes into writing for audio description, you wouldn't think writing what's happening on the screen is that tough. You're like, well, yeah, they picked up the shovel, they turned to the left. No. What's the make and year of the car? Even the color choices, even if you can't see that, color choices are specific. I mean, set decorators choose specific colors to evoke certain emotions. So when you hear those recurring themes come up over a period of time, you start to understand what the intent is by putting that texture, that color, that shape, all of that visual scape that exists. When you don't have that, it needs to be described. And when you're an audio description writer, you need to be that specific. And I actually don't want to put my hat in the ring very much for audio description. I do a lot of adaptation, localization work, but audio description is so difficult. It's so difficult. There's such specificity that you need to have, that you should have, and you should want to have if you are doing audio description writing.
And if we could continue on that writing side a little bit more, that specificity that you're talking about, it does sound like it's a curated specificity in the sense that you've got a limited amount of time. And even if you do find that perfect word choice, that it could be, in your dream world, we'd have to hit pause and wait 2 or 3 minutes to make sure that we capture everything. But there's no luxury for that.
No, I mean, all of post-production things, making a product, a movie, a show, whatever, you already have tough deadlines that you have to hit. So imagine then that once all of that rigmarole, everything's out, okay, then you've got to get it out onto whatever platform it's going to be, if it's going to be a DVD, if it's going to be a streaming service, whatever. So all the post-production, you've got to happen yesterday. So not only do you have to know the specificity of what you're supposed to be doing, but you also only have the spaces in between the dialogue, the music, the moments that you have to insert key information into a finished product and not take away from it, but add to it and not miss anything. And you're also doing that on a deadline where you needed it yesterday. So it's just so much work. It's so specific, and kudos to the people that are good at it. I try my best, but I will not toot my own horn in that realm.
Do you find that realm, the deadlines, the pressure has informed how you've done maybe your voiceover work in general or specifically in audio description narration? Has that had an influence at all?
It's definitely had an influence. I was working on a project where I was both writing and narrating, and that was very eye-opening from also that, you have 3 or 4 different writers on the same project because it's just so big. There's no way you'll hit your deadlines if you don't have that many people on it, and having to fix the scripts in the booth as I'm recording. And that was very eye-opening. of just what little changes there could be. So you almost have to keep an eye out to keep consistency. There's just so many things that can fall through the cracks. And that's literally every project ever. But especially in this realm where if you have lived your whole life being able to see, you may not pick up on it. And it's so easy for those things to get dropped because you don't know what to be listening for.
And it sounds like those falling through the cracks thing, anything that falls through the cracks, whether it's the timing or the writing or the voice talent or even that consistency that you mentioned, that it stands out. It's like it's got to be a little bit off, really affects the audience's experience. And to your point, as sighted people, knowing that blind professionals are involved in this work, it makes the work better. It makes it be able to be of the caliber that it deserves simply because of the experience that's brought from those people that have those skills and are able to deliver on audio description in a way that a lot of sighted people are kind of limited to.
Something that sort of tickled me, I came across recently, was AI performances for audio description. Because would you, if your child was tired and told you, read me a story, would you use an AI computer voice to read a storybook to your child to get them to go to sleep? Would that immerse them in the world and lull them to sleep and give them all of the context of the story and the feeling and everything else? No, you would read the story to your child and you would get involved and you would tell them about the three bears or Goldilocks or whatever. And you're going to put all this emotion into the story. You can't just put the voice that talks like this. The thing is happening. Like, there's no emotion there. You can't get it. And also think of those really tense moments when there's like a death in a movie and they're sitting there cradling their head and a single tear falls from their eye. See how you heard how I did that just now, and I wasn't even trying very hard, but imagine she cradles his head. A single tear falls from his eye. Are you going to feel anything when you hear that? No. So sorry, that was a little tangent, but the AI voice stuff just kills me because it's like, you've forgotten that we're human and we feel things.
Wow. And it's what I'm hearing is the answer to why not AI in this context. And I've never heard it shared in the sense of reading a book to your child at night, is that you brought up a few things. There was the immersive experience and being involved. And each of those two things, the immersion and the involvement, hinges on the emotion. Those, you use the expression tense moments, that feeling things. Even if AI were to be able to be programmed to even come close to that emotional nuance, it still is somebody programming it and saying, okay, now do, of all the different intentions that you can bring to this particular phrase, of the 300 that you're going to be doing in the next 2 hours, we're going to choose this intention. And it sounds like, and I agree with you on this, in that we as voice actors have trained as actors in intention of what we bring to it. It's not just we're going to be sad or we're going to be impassioned. It's going to be to impress, to scare, to thrill, to surprise. These two verbs are what we can bring. That can't be programmed, but we've done all these years of training that it comes to us in a way that's a lot actually genuinely faster.
Yeah, I think we're hitting and this is, sorry, we're going to go on a couple little tangents today, but one of the things that comes with the streaming wars that are happening right now, I mean, I've talked to Roy about this before, but all of these massive companies are just fighting to get whatever content they can and get it out fast. So one of the things that's going to happen is you're either going to put the work in and make it be the best that it can be, or you're not, and you're just going to send it out, and the cream will rise to the top. The things that are good will have lasting staying power. And when companies look back and go, oh, I wonder why that one worked so well. I wonder why that one was really popular. Well, if you think about it for more than about 1 second, it's because a lot of work was put in to make it good. And because people can connect to it emotionally. But I was just speaking to someone about how they really loved Friends, and there was a Friends reunion, and they said they were really disappointed in it. because it was just all of the actors coming back together talking about being on the show. And then they did a fashion show or something. And what they said was, I just wanted another episode. I wanted to see what happened next. I wanted the story. I wanted the connection. I wanted to connect emotionally to these characters and this story that I loved. I mean, the reason we like movies and TV and video games and all of these things is because we can connect to it in some way on an emotional human level. And that's why it means something to us. And that's every piece of art, every piece of media, all of our entertainment. We have to connect to it emotionally. If we don't care. So, little tangent, but yeah.
Really well said. Thank you for sharing all that. And with that cream rising to the top analogy, it seems like the pivot from, as you had said, getting it out there fast, which also implies, how cheap we can get it. And it's like, well, it is a value. If you value how cheap can we do this, that is a different question than how great can we make this work. If the cream does rise to the top and connection and story means something to our audiences, which it's definitely showing that more than anecdotally, it makes a difference, then maybe that pivot is something that is happening.
I mean, Bridgerton is such a good show, and people love reality TV show, but period work always comes back because it's
Nice.
smart and it's got good story, and there's so much thought and detail put into the locations and the costumes and there's always going to be an audience for everything, but the things that will have staying power, again, it's the stuff that was really good, that really has that emotional connection in that story. I know I'm going to harp on that a million times, but it's so true.
All right. And I hate to push the analogy here, but I'd imagine that in Bridgerton, that they did value quality in the sense that if there were to be someone in a suit of armor, they probably wouldn't have just bought a trash bag and put a hole in the bottom over their heads.
Oh, goodness. No.
That probably wouldn't have passed the audience's toleration level. And that kind of shortcut wouldn't work.
Yeah, I mean, you can real leather and faux leather. They're different. Metal, like true silver and silver plated, you can tell the difference. The weight, the texture, the feeling, all of it is connected. I have been in many different positions of being a metalsmith, a woodsmith, stained glass, ceramics, a baker, a cook, a fencer, a martial artist. I've worn so many hats. The list goes on and on and on. I told Roy I only bring things up if people ask directly, but everything is interconnected. The heart of things is on display no matter what form it comes in. When you see someone's passion project and you can tell that everyone that's involved in that passion project was just as excited as the person who made that passion project, you can feel it. And that goes for everything. And that's how it should be. But, we get in this machine of having to churn everything out. That's where things kind of fall apart. And yes, of course, money definitely comes into play.
Well, and you really hit it well with the heart on display, that there is a investment that's put into this work, audio description or other creative elements, whether it's the writers of audio description or the voice talents like yourself. There's something to that heart is on display that has resonated throughout this conversation of what this means to you. And I'm curious if there's any experience that you've had in working with audio description as opposed to something in another area of voiceover. If there is something unique about this particular work without going into the, well, let's see where you take it. What do you think?
I think it comes to that 25% performance, because I can't tell you, I just recently did audio description for a movie called Intrusion, and it is a very suspenseful movie that has cathartic moments to it. And boy, let me tell you, the parallels of, so imagine the actor in a scenario goes through a really harrowing experience, and they're finally getting to this moment of catharsis. And there's a lot of quiet, a lot of thriller movies, a lot of audio description, so much time to paint the scene and paint the experience and all of that kind of stuff. But there have been times where I had to watch the scene and watch it again and watch it again to desensitize myself to my emotions about it, so that I could bring the emotions up and not cry, but still deliver it with emotion. And the same goes for voice acting, for on-camera acting, anything. You have to be able to harness your emotions to communicate that genuine, authentic emotion, but not fake it, but make it real, but not so real that you can't come back when they say cut. So, and when you're doing audio description, you can only do 25% of that. So you have to really be in the know of how you sound and how you're coming across. And this makes it sound like I'm some kind of expert on this. I'm not. I'm doing my best, trying to get better all the time. But yeah, I would say that's a big parallel, is just realizing the emotional control you have to have with it.
And it sounds like in all your experiences that you do bring that performance element, as well as a really clear awareness that I find that in how you talk about this, that you are not being self-effacing, but it's like, this is something that, here's my take on it, and I have a sense of what my voice, my instrument can do, and this is how I think it's coming out, and this is how it is coming out. That gap between thinking what it is and what it is it's there's nothing in there. It's like you've really narrowed what that is, and I think that's a great thing for any performer to be able to have that awareness as well as the skills of a performer. So it's really great to hear you go into that.
I am constantly in classes. I spent the entire pandemic training with Howard Fine, and I'm still taking scene study courses. Something I think a lot of people don't realize with the acting world is you will never stop learning. You will never stop studying, because the fun part about time is it doesn't stop. So as you as a person live your life day to day, grow into an older person, you now have all these new experiences and age and all of these things. You're constantly having to reassess who you are, when you are, and what you are at all times. And the awareness that you have to constantly have for yourself as you move through being an actor is having a very honest conversation with yourself about that. So I feel like the gap between what you think you sound like and what you actually sound like has to be almost non-existent. And you have to constantly be checking in with yourself about what that is for you.
I'm not a sports guy, but I'd imagine the analogy is that if I were my skinny body joins a football team somewhere, that had I been in the kind of shape that I need to be able to join a professional football team, that's not the end of it. Like, a part of joining the football team is that I still am training, I still am working out, I still am practicing working with the team and the moves and all this other stuff. And I wonder if there's a parallel there, the sports parallel to what you're talking about. It seems like it is. As you said, you're continually training.
I listened to a podcast called Audrey Helps Actors, and I love the analogy she gave, is that to be an actor is to be an Olympian for the rest of your life. You have to train at an Olympic level for basically the rest of your life to constantly stay on your A game, which sounds so impossible because you have things like, depression and anxiety, and then life happens, you get sick, people pass away, global pandemics happen. Somehow keeping your head above water while your life is constantly happening to you and still coming in and giving a good performance. I mean, imagine getting the worst news of your life and having to walk onto a set with 20,000 people who are relying on you to show up for work that day. There's so much that happens behind the scenes. Oh, this is a very long tangent. Anyway.
It's a great tangent. How can people follow you? Social media, websites?
Well, my social media, try not to laugh. There's a story. It is Boobs McBalrog, like the fire demon from Lord of the Rings. BOOBSMCBALROG. That is my username on pretty much every platform. Caitlyn Elizabeth is what you can find me on IMDb for. That is also my website, CaitlynElizabeth.net. That is CaitlynElizabeth.net. That's where all my demos and stuff are. But I will give the quick story of the Boobs McBalrog thing. I have worked at a lot of conventions, anime, steampunk, video game, all that kind of thing. I used to work for a lot of the vendors. I would sell leather top hats at the Blonde Swan. I would sell like dragon armor type things at various places. And when I was working with one of the steampunk booths, I wore this cute corset and this black and white stripy top and this foofy skirt, heels. And I walked by this armory booth that had this really cool helmet. And I do metalsmithing and that kind of stuff. So I was checking everything out. So I put on this big helmet that had these giant, Balrog-esque horns on. But I'm wearing this corset, so my waist is all teeny and my boobs are shoved up under my chin. And I'm wearing this big horned helmet, and someone commented when I posted the picture later, they were like, haha, boobs McBalrog. And I kept it, and I thought I was gonna have to change it, but every director, producer, person I've met said, oh, never change that. And so after I had enough companies tell me, the higher ups at these companies say, oh, don't change that, I'm not going to. You have to get to know me to understand what it is. It's very easy to take it at surface level that I'm just trying to be raunchy, but I am not.
Oh, thanks so much for joining us for this. This has been great.
Thank you for having me.